reminded of the light that comes within us and around us. We are reminded of the fire of community that strengthens us and the flames of Pentecost that embolden us. You will remember your prayer flags of the 4 directions of yesterday. I would invite you to take those and rise as you are able. For our call to worship this morning, we will once again use our circular prayer flags, and you will see your responses printed for you on the screen. The North White Wind Elder says. Here we go, there's your response. We asked for a home, We asked for a home and you gave us a journey. Faith like a single flame, weaving light and shadow on an unknown way. The East Yellow Fire Child says, we asked for a sign and you gave us a vision. Hope like a dancer's hand, forming shape and substance from tomorrow's day. The South, Earth, Red, youth, and young adults say, we asked for a rest, and you gave us a calling. Peace like an eagle's wing rises, lifting doubt and weakness into certainty. The West, Black, Water, adult parents say, we asked for love and you gave us community, trust like a desert flower, bringing joy and beauty in its promised spring. And together we say, from the North and the South, the East and the West, we come to you, source of our call and source of our sustaining. Spin into our journey a vision of faith, a dance of hope, and a community of love. And I invite you to remain standing as we sing our opening hymn this morning, Called by Earth and Sky.
Sacred living trust, treasure of life, Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Kate Crawford from Huron Perth Presbytery, and I have the honor of presenting to London Conference one of the 2018 inductees to the Order of Ontario, Geraldine Robertson. Geraldine is accompanied today by her husband, Robert Robertson. Robert, would you? There he is. Daughter-in-law, Marjorie Robertson. And granddaughter, Avery Robertson. Geraldine was nominated for the Order of Ontario by Huron Shores United Church in Grand Bend for her exemplary work in shining a light on the horrors of the Indian residential school system. I can't see what's on the screen. There we are. And you are going to help and welcome Geraldine. We welcome you, Geraldine Robertson, and look forward to hearing your story. In 1942, a white-skinned teacher in the one-room schoolhouse on Sarnia Reserve told little Geraldine Manis that she was too stupid to learn anything. Geraldine's father drove her instead to the Mount Elgin Residential School on the Munsee Reserve, where she had a good, kind teacher. Soon, a new school back home was completed, and Geraldine had another wonderful teacher. She excelled and completed 2 years in one. We celebrate your intelligence and your success. She's dying up here. Her father died, and her mother was hospitalized with tuberculosis. There was no one to stay with. An Indian agent shipped Geraldine and her sisters to Brantford to the Mohawk Institute. It was an extremely harsh environment. The principal and supervisors were cruel, which led to bullying among the students. Geraldine recalls being beaten frequently by 2 older girls. The ordained principal enjoyed strapping the children. Geraldine would regularly receive 10 to 15 blows on each hand. No one was allowed to speak their native language. There were also whispers about sexual abuse at the school. At church services, the minister would preach that they would burn in hell for eternity. We grieve the way you and all of those children were treated. Not surprisingly, Geraldine left that school full of anger, which she turned against her own mother when she had moved back home. After high school, she worked in a medical clinic, a place of healing. She married Bob Robertson and raised a family of 6 children, 2 of whom were adopted. We celebrate your ability to hope and to dream, to love and to be loved. Moving back to her reserve, she noticed dysfunction in the community. She realized the extent of harm and damage done to children in residential schools was now being repeated through the generations. Geraldine took it upon herself to talk. Others turned to violence and to alcohol to deal with the past. Through more than 2 decades, she has opened many people's eyes, including social workers, school children, and churchgoers. She has traveled with the General Council of the United Church across the country, supporting Indigenous healing and settler education efforts. even now, she continues in her work, seeking acknowledgement of the atrocities endured at residential schools. We affirm you as a role model, a leader, and an elder in our midst. It has taken great courage, strength, and resiliency for Geraldine to share her experiences and work towards enlightenment. She has done it on her own with an open heart and has spoken from her heart. I am deeply honored to present to you Bago Desenda Mogwe Ojibwe Winikazo, woman who brings hope, of the Mishkinen Odudaman or Turtle Clan, Amjanong elder and member of the Order of Ontario, Geraldine Mannis Robertson.
Geraldine, many of us in this court know you because you have been a quiet leader among us for a very long time. Some of us do not, but now we know a small part of your story. We have a response? Another screen? Through example, through gentle nudges, and through difficult truths. And now, Geraldine, we can join with the whole province of Ontario, and indeed Canada, in naming you as an elder and leader, not just for the church, but for the citizens of this place, as we move even deeper as a nation in the healing journey of reconciliation. As president of London Conference, I speak the words of celebration, of gratitude, and of thanksgiving that God's restless spirit has been working in you and through you. Chi Miigwech. Thanks be to God. Amen. Chi Miigwech. Thanks be to God. Geraldine, I have for you, it is not in the mail, as I told you, a certificate from the moderator in the United Church of Canada, a letter of congratulations that I would now like to read to the court. Dear Geraldine, on behalf of the United Church of Canada, allow me to congratulate you on an exceptional achievement. I am thrilled to hear that the Ontario government awarded you the Order of Ontario in February of this year. Your tireless efforts in support of residential school survivors has made a huge difference in the lives of so many. It takes a very special person to transform their own experiences of pain into a source of healing and hope for others. Thank you for your courage, dedication in helping survivors find their voice and heal from their experiences. In addition to supporting fellow survivors of residential schools, you have also enabled the wider Canadian public to learn about and confront our legacy of colonialism. By teaching young students about the history and impact of residential schools, you have helped shape a future for our country rooted in respect and dignity for all. Your courage, your compassion, your commitment to healing and justice are an inspiration to all of the peoples of this land. I am humbled by your example, and I sincerely thank you for all that you have done for our church and our entire country. Faithfully, Jordan Cantwell, the Right Reverend, Moderator of the United Church of Canada.
Oh, God bless you. That's so powerful.
We offer to you, Geraldine, on behalf of this conference, this bowl, specially commissioned for you in a glaze that represents the river as it flows to the center of life.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to say something?
Just a few quick words.
Here's your bag for your bowl.
Oh, okay, thanks.
No, Mark, no.
Just a second. That's all it'll take. Yes. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without the love and support of my family. But also from beginning of 2000, I had drawn a lot of strength from Reverend Matthew Stevens, who stood by me and supported me and encouraged me to go on to share my story. And I want to really thank you, Matthew, because otherwise I think I would have fallen down many times without your support and strength. And that meant a great deal to me. And of course, all the goodness and kindness that I've encountered throughout my journey. I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
We're going to sing you a blessing song. So lift it up, and I'll carry the bowl down there.
May the blessing of God go before you. May her grace and peace abound. May her spirit live within you. May her love wrap you round. May her blessing remain with you always. May you walk on holy ground.
Are you good? Do you need an extra hand with the walker?
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
We have a busy day ahead of us, friends. We call together now the Social Justice Group for their report. We're going to see the aftershock video at the beginning here.
President Joyce, I think the court might remember that last year we watched a clip from a video that you can access on the conference YouTube channel. We are still here. And are you going to say more? Like, should I stop talking?
When have you ever stopped talking for me?
Probably never, but there could be a first time.
You're welcome. Hey. Hey. Okay, I just wanted to check on life signs. Okay, I want to tell you, Geraldine's got me in trouble with my wife now. Because I promised her I wasn't going to go to the mic. So, I'm in trouble.
I offered to rescue you.
Now she says it. You know, this film that you're going to see this morning, or a clip from it, Aftershock, is a film that I feel very, very close to. I'm second generation from a wonderful mother who attended residential school, and from a father who, and this is something else that we perhaps need to talk about sometime, a father who was sent out at the age of 8 from Ireland to be an indentured servant in Ontario for 10 years. He served, interestingly enough, he served in a little community called Mount Elgin, down near Ingersoll. And for 10 years, he was an indentured servant. So my mom and dad, they weren't strong on parenting skills. And when this opportunity came along, when we had an opportunity to follow up on the first video, I felt very, very strongly about it. And the person who produced the video, Dwayne, is a superb craftsperson when it comes to video. We were so blessed that he agreed to work with us. Geraldine offered me a lot of wonderful statements. Truth of the matter is, Geraldine is one person you don't say no to. She scared the hell out of me. Even more than someone else over here who I worked for a number of years. But when Geraldine says you're going to do something, you get busy and do it. And this video, I hope you will use the opportunity that what we see this morning to use this video in your own church lives. So without any further chatter from me, please enjoy this clip. excuse me, at the original meeting where we discussed making the first film, which you've already seen, and this follow-up, the person that we had engaged or wanted to engage to make the film, Dwayne, we explained the project to him, and he sort of listened very carefully and asked a few questions, and then he turned to all of us that were at that meeting and said, I don't know if I'm up to such a task. I don't know if I'm worthy of it. Well, I think now you can see that he was very worthy and a wonderful person to allow the story to pass through his creative veins. And that takes some doing on the part of a person who can use their creativity for somebody else's story. And he's done a marvelous job. I hope you will use the film wherever possible. I've gone all over the place, and I have one message. And it boils down to 3 words. Many of you have heard me say this before, I'm sure. 3 words that I hope that all of us will learn to put out of our vocabulary. I know better. Every time we as a society, and my friends, that's us as a church too, mouth out those words, rest assured somebody is going to get hurt. Because with it, we adopt a moral superiority that allows us to say, whatever you wanted, whatever you think your answer is, we know better. I've had the privilege of traveling not only in Canada, but working with many groups in the United States as well. I've met with BIA in the States. I've also recently had the privilege of going to Australia and meeting with some of the First Nations people there. And the one thing that holds true in each of those cases is the majority of people, the major society, were very confident that they knew better. And I still hear it today. I hear it when we talk about self-government. And everybody says, well, really? Come on. Can you really give a bunch of Indians a pile of money? You know what they're going to do. And I keep looking and I'm thinking, I didn't know that Mr. Ford was Native. I didn't understand that the previous Prime Minister was Native. But they, you know, there seems to be this notion that somehow everybody in the world knows better. Friends, if you really want reconciliation, if you are sincere in it, then make the promise, make the commitment today, never again will I use that term, nor will I regard other people in the same way that I know better. Thank you very much for your patience.
I didn't mean.
Good morning. I am Marg Murray of the Division of Social Justice. And as a grandmother, I want for my grandchildren to share my enthusiasm for compassion and justice and not to know better. We've all heard many times and believe that that gospel is good news for the poor. In Acts 17, Paul reports it much more radically. Followers of Jesus were accused of turning the world upside down against the decrees of the Roman emperor. This morning, using the lens of climate change crisis, we look at 3 areas of social justice. We want to raise your awareness of the climate crisis. For as a grandparent, I want to ensure that our planet that we leave for our grandchildren is on the road to health, not destruction. Even as planet Earth warms, our population grows exponentially. We are assured that the solutions are social, not technological. Communities working together across public and private sectors, provincial boundaries and national boundaries can solve this and keep our hearts and souls intact. But there's a reminder that social also means political. For politics, it's the making of decisions which apply to members of a group. But too many decisions made until today have fostered unsustainable economic activity, which largely ignores people and the environment. Empires, whether in ancient Roman times or more recent times of settler colonialism in Canada, have extracted resources for excess profit without recognizing limits of non-renewable resources. The handout on your table has a graphic entitled Sustainability of Creation with 3 simple circles. Economic activity is within community, which is within environment, or as we people of faith like to say, within creation. A sustainable economy flourishes within healthy and well-balanced communities within creation. Am I too bold when I suggest that the sustainability of creation is God's plan for planet Earth? Because this sustainability graphic on your tables is an upside-down alternative to the pursuit of unlimited economic growth, which has little regard for long-term impacts on people as well as the land and the water. And this is especially true for rural and indigenous people around the world. So in the following video, people more vulnerable than me or you or our grandchildren face the forces of climate change. But we are all part of creation, and we're all called to care for creation. So we'll show the video now.
As Christians, we are called to loving unity with every God-created living thing. We have not followed God's plan. Our industrial processes and overconsumption have altered our delicately balanced climate and ecology. Waste accumulates. Weather becomes extreme and erratic. Is this the deadly legacy we want to leave to children and grandchildren? Ours and everyone's? It's no way to treat a child. Climate change is a social justice issue. Israel and Palestine have had 9 consecutive years of high temperatures and drought. Without rain, the people depend on a shared underground aquifer. Israel has developed the world's most effective infrastructure for water retrieval and management. But in occupied Palestine, crops and animals die. Palestinian children travel farther and farther to find water. No way to treat a child. As we heat our planet, Rich landscapes like the Amazon Delta turn to sand. Aboriginal fishers lose their livelihood. As we heat our planet, glaciers and ice caps melt. Fish and mammals perish. Humans who depend on those fish and mammals lose their way of life. No way to treat a child. In many northern First Nation communities in Canada, food and other supplies come only by winter ice roads. Ice roads last for less and less time each year. Without affordable food, how will northern First Nations survive? Climate change in Aboriginal territories. No way to treat a child. Over 1 million Canadian children live in poverty. Most families in poverty live in the least desirable, most unhealthy environment. And so they suffer more from climate change.
Faithful for us to be involved, to be committed to the ongoing health of the land and the water.
There is no planet B.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Woods. Along with Laurel Kenny, I'm the London Conference co-chair of the Bread Not Stones initiative. For those who may have missed the presentation yesterday, just a brief overview of this vital project. In 2014, the United Church of Canada launched Bread Not Stones as a national initiative to eliminate child poverty in our country. Unbelievable, but sadly true, there are still 1,242,530 children living in poverty in Canada, including 38% of First Nations children living on reserve. Totally unacceptable. This project was created for every member of our church. It's not a fundraiser. The goal is to raise awareness and advocate with all levels of government to eradicate child poverty in this country. Our symbols are rag dolls of hope, just like Dolly here, who you just saw in our video. Each represents a child in poverty in Canada. They touch hearts and speak volumes for our most vulnerable children. They are presented as compelling reminders to politicians and others of influence who direct government funding. Today, I'm inviting you to look at this project specifically through the lens of climate change. One of the critical things children in poverty and their families need most is food security. The situation is already untenable, and here's why. Due to high prices, insufficient funds, and climate change, over 4 million people across Canada are currently food insecure, including 1 in 6 children in Canada. Food insecure children suffer greater risks for conditions like asthma, depression, and risk of suicide in adolescence and early adulthood. Food bank usage across Canada was 3% higher in 2016 than the year before, and 28% higher than it was in 2008. 2 out of every 5 northern households are food insecure, including 62% of children living in the north. The price of nutritious foods in northern communities is often astronomical and totally out of reach. Now add to this daunting mix the specter of ever-increasing climate change. The situation could deteriorate dramatically for children in poverty. Food supplies may become much more scarce due to extreme weather patterns, causing prices to become even more unaffordable. The health and well-being of these vulnerable children could easily spiral downward. No way to treat a child.
Morning. My name's Curtis Marwood. I represent the Palestine Network on the Social Justice Division. It is no wonder that the people of Gaza are protesting. One can understand the sense of hopelessness and despair after witnessing what we've seen in the past few weeks. The Gaza Strip is on the brink of collapse, its crippled economy resulting from Israel's decade-long illegal blockade. But the protest was, for the most part, nonviolent. The Palestinians demonstrate the human quality of steadfastness. They call it samud, rooted in hope, hope to be able to return home. There is a growing water crisis in Palestine. In Gaza, 95% of water is unfit for human consumption. The water in Gaza is polluted with untreated sewage, agricultural chemicals, and it is brackish from seawater, all because of the three or more attacks on the Gaza by the Israeli military. Gaza's water crisis poses grave health risks to children. In the West Bank, 80% of the only source of underground water is controlled by Israel. Israelis have access to 3 to 4 times the amount of water available to Palestinians. Israeli-only settlements in the West Bank have lush gardens, swimming pools, and green lawns. And even as I speak this morning, the Bedouin village of Khan el-Ahmar, outside of Jerusalem, the decision has been made to move it to another location to make way for the expansion of the Ma'ale Adumim settlement. And they're going to be moved to outside the Jerusalem garbage dump. In some areas, Palestinians have to buy their water from trucks because Israel refuses to allow them to link up to the water grid. Palestinian villages receive water once a week or once every few weeks, if at all. Palestinians are forced to spend as much as a quarter of their income to purchase tanks of water from private businesses. The phrase, "no way to treat a child," actually refers to the campaign against detention and torture of children. But the human impact of water shortage and pollution is also life-threatening for children. The oppression and occupation that deprives Palestinians from access to water is environmental injustice. But is that climate change, climate injustice, or human injustice? Ethnic and racist oppression is creating the water shortage for Palestinians. The environmental impact of water shortage in Palestine is, I maintain, human injustice. The climate injustice experienced by remote indigenous communities is also human injustice. Therefore, if we're going to try to integrate these areas of justice concerns under the umbrella of climate justice, I think we need to challenge the way politics, race, and economic oppression play a part in climate justice.
In the short video which you have just seen, you were shown one example of the connection between climate change and Aboriginal rights. When climate warms, ice roads melt, supplies can't get to isolated First Nations. In our conference, First Nations downstream from Sarnia Industry or downstream from London suffer from the effects of industrial processes that affect climate change in many ways and produce pollutants that affect First Nations. There are examples elsewhere, as well as right here in our conference. The United Nations in 2008
passed the UN Declaration of Aboriginal Rights, affirming the right of Aboriginal people, and there are over 300 million in Canada, in the world, to rights to occupy traditional land, self-government, health care, many rights. Almost every country signed this declaration. Canada did not until May of 2016. A declaration is not legislation, and it's not action. Action can follow. Call to Action 43 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called on the government not only to endorse the United Nations Declaration of Aboriginal Rights, but to put it into practice. Right relations aren't made by institutions and committees and resolutions. They're made by persons working as individual persons with persons. What can we as individuals do about climate change and Aboriginal rights? Have you been to a powwow? You've just missed the one at Kettle and Stony Point, but the YouTube videos are there. Walpole Islands comes in July. Before worship in your congregation is their acknowledgement that you are on Aboriginal territory, and thanks for the Aboriginal stewards of that land in the past. Have you been to the Woodland Cultural Center, formerly the Mohawk Residential School? Have you been to a medicinal plant garden? There's one on the campus of Western University. There's a public one in London in a park along the river near Hamilton Road and Trafalgar Streets. There's one now at Kettle and Stony Point. You needn't be shy about visiting a plant. Have you listened to an Aboriginal FM radio station, community radio station? You might try 107.7 FM out of Kettle Point. Have you read Aboriginal literature, Canadian and other novels, memoirs, history, legends? If you have a church library, are some of those in that library? There are so many ways in which individuals who feel called to right relations can take part. You don't need to be a member of a committee.
Good morning, church. My name's Kerry Wagner, and I chair the Division of Social Justice for London Conference. We have seen the video how climate change affects areas of justice, and you have heard the passion of my colleagues in the area of Palestine and Israel, poverty and right relations. My colleagues have only given you snippets of the work they do and the passion they have for social justice. As you are well aware, there are many more social justice issues that we have not named here this morning. Human trafficking, mining and resource extractions, refugee work, racism, human rights. There is so much work to be done, friends, and it is time for us to stand up in solidarity in our work for social justice. On your table, each person has a handout with lots of information, with links to websites. As well, on the page, there are some questions to get our conversation going this morning as we take 10 minutes for some table talk. You will see questions such as, how can I speak up? And this morning, we have 10 minutes to engage in this conversation about social justice. Social justice requires solidarity work where everyone is engaged. I will give you a 1-minute warning to wrap up the conversation. And when our conversation comes to a close, we are looking for some feedback from the tables. maybe some concerns, comments, maybe even some questions. Perhaps the questions on the screen could help with the feedback, if they're up there. What will you take back to your community of faith from today's conversation? Do you see a connection between climate change and other areas of social justice? Can you commit to contact your MP or MPP to raise your concerns for areas of justice? And what tools do you need for yourself or your community of faith to make a difference in your community and in the world? So at this time, when the conversation comes to a close, we will invite folks to share their ideas at the mics. And if one person from your table can be ready to go to the mic, we will be able to hear from more tables. I realize we won't be able to hear from every table, and I realize we will have to close the conversation probably before we hear from everyone. Thank you, folks, for this important work you do here this morning, and you have 10 minutes to engage in the conversation.
You're scared him like this.
Friends, you have 1 minute to wrap up your conversations, and I invite you to maybe nominate someone from your table to go to the mic.
So I'm Greg, and I'm supposed to pass on hello to you from Leela Curry. Oh, great. So she is in team ministry. I was just out there. You were right. Yeah, she's in team ministry with my girlfriend. Yeah, so oh, did you? Yeah. So I thought I better come and see. I'm just moving to Canada. But I thought you were never left the area. Oh, I just was visiting. Oh, no, I was just visiting. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't want to interrupt your stuff.
All right, yeah. Okay, friends, that's been 10 minutes. As people make their way to the mics, I just want to point out this sign up here. Let's vote for poverty-free Ontario. There will be election kits on your tables this afternoon as a resource to have questions for your folks that are running for the provincial election. So, the resource is by ISARC, which is the Interfaith Social Assistance Reform Coalition. And we're partners with that with the United Church of Canada. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there are sticks available, USB sticks available for the video, the 40-minute version of Aftershock. So, and you'll be able to get, we'll put the word out how to get those sticks. So, is there anybody at the mic? I can't really see with mic number 2.
Could I get the tech team to turn down the spotlights a little bit, please?
Thanks, guys.
Microphone number 2. We're moving over to microphone number 1.
Let's go with microphone number 1 then.
Microphone number 1, please. Are we able to get a microphone active on the floor? Microphone number 2. Thank you.
Chris Cook, Lambton Presbytery. I'm at table 2. We had a few ideas, one that has already been done. So one was pay attention. Oops. Yeah, pay attention to the those stores that sell in bulk and encourage you to bring reusable containers to buy. Take advantage of those. Take advantage of recycling as much as you can. So that's a simple one. Another one was sending somebody from your congregation to some of the Indigenous centers that provide courses and teaching you to educate, and have those people bring back that knowledge to your congregation. And another one was somebody organized a bus trip, an awareness trip, to 35 miles to their nearest First Nation, and organized in partnership with the elders there to do effectively an awareness trip for people in their congregation that, as Matthew said earlier, probably some of them thought that give them a pile of money and who knows what's going to happen. It really helped open eyes Obviously, that would have to be done carefully in partnership to avoid making it some kind of tourist event. Anyways, those were the ideas.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Microphone number 1.
Jane Van Patter, Oxford Presbytery. Yay, Oxford. The county of Oxford itself has spent considerable time in the spring looking at a poverty-free Ontario, and is working hard as a county to work towards championing the government to work towards universal basic income. And there's an article in today's London Free Press in the comments section all about basic income for the future. So it's universal basic income for low-income families. And I think it's really worth a read to give you some food for thought in terms of how to address some of the issues of poverty in Ontario, and would encourage you to take a look at that. As to the question about would my church put the Poverty-Free Ontario sign on our church property in advance of the election, my individual answer to that is would love to do so. To Matthew's point, I know better. I know better than to put that sign on church property without first going to the congregation, at least to the church council, for some sort of consensus and support, because it's a sign that would represent the sentiment of the whole church family.
Right. Thank you, Jane. Microphone number 1.
Carrie Stover, Middlesex Presbytery. Table 12, we looked at all of the issues and decided to hit on your point number 3. Thing that we're missing, that we felt, is education. And education so that we can get to reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Education so that we will understand about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Education about the climate change and how we affect that and how we can affect politicians as well with our voices. So we would encourage all congregations, all pastoral charges of this court to at least spend 1 month on each topic on the handout of making some material and information to your pastoral charges, your congregations, so that they are better educated on each of these topics. By doing so, we can then all raise our voices and be heard. To that point as well, when looking at proposal number 4 in our booklets on our table, the distribution of assets, we felt that at some point when the deferred assets are distributed, that we at some point would like to amend the proposal 4 to also include the Woodland Cultural Center so that education coordinators could be funded if there's enough funds there, so that those educational coordinators from the Native communities can come out and speak to our pastoral charges about reconciliation, about residential schools. Because currently, the education coordinators at the Woodland Cultural Center do not have any funds to do that. So we ask you to do that as well. So we are taking it back to and encourage all pastoral charges of this court to start the process of education if you have not already, especially on your excellent handout. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Microphone number 1.
Donna Kerrigan from Elgin Presbytery and Table 24. We were just reflecting on how the legacy of residential schools is still with us, and we are just really beginning to understand it. We wanted to be supportive of the efforts that are being made in the school systems now to introduce Indigenous literature and Indigenous studies, which follows on to the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations. This is really important and something that I don't think is being spoken of in the election so far, but I'd like to hear some conversation on my doorstep for sure. Another issue that was raised at our table, and the conclusion was pretty unanimous, that what will probably bring us all together is climate change and the effects that this is having, especially on northern and very vulnerable peoples. And so we are really looking forward to more education on that and encouraging, again, that conversation on the doorsteps. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I'm aware that we have 1 minute left for the mics, so if you can make it brief. Mic number 2.
Carolyn Murray from Middlesex Presbytery and representing table 29. Quickly, on the matter of Israel-Palestine, there are amazing resources on the United Church website in terms of what products that you can boycott. But more importantly on that issue, it is time that we all did write letters to our politicians. That is one of the most powerful things that we can do at this point, particularly on the present situation in Gaza and the ongoing blockade there. On the matter of Indigenous resources, right in our neighborhood, like 20 minutes from here, there are 2 communities who cannot drink their water. And that is an issue that we as communities of faith could advocate for those communities to be able to hook up to the Lake Erie water pipeline. So writing letters and advocacy, I think, are really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Last question.
Nancy Andrews from Lambton Presbytery. You know, the whole question of taking trips to Israel was why are we still going there and paying money and putting it in their coffers so that they can continue to use that money and victimize people in Palestine. But anyway, we had one person at our table who said he made 3 trips and it turned him around 180%. So there you go is the other side of the argument for taking trips there. One person at our table said she belongs to a group, Women Making a Difference Together, and she's going to suggest a water project back in Palestine. To go take that back to her group. Now, the other thing about education, I'll just say that Reverend Lillian Patey is the minister at my church, and her and yourself, Carrie, had a workshop to educate the people about the Palestinian issues, and, you know, there was only a small number who came. So, you know, we can fund a lot of money into something, but, you know, let's get interested.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to make one quick point. The government made a commitment last December to provide Indigenous educational support materials for all of the school boards in Ontario. So that is on the go.
Thank you, President Joyce. That is our report, and we'll finish with a song.
What does the Lord require of you? What does the Lord require of you? Justice, kindness, walk humbly with your God. To seek justice and love kindness and walk humbly with your God. Justice, Lord, require love kindness. What does the Lord with your God? Justice, Lord,
Are we feeling grateful?
Are we feeling grateful? Amen. Here we go.
Scriptural basis for our theme, 2 Timothy 2. In a well-furnished kitchen, there are not only crystal goblets and silver platters, but waste cans and compost buckets. Some containers used to serve fine meals, others to take out the garbage. Become the kind of container that God can use to present every and any kind of gift to his guests for their blessing. I would like to have you refer to page 13 on your delegate handbook. These are wise words we receive when we come into many meetings. Holy manners. Holy manners. I commend these words to you as we engage in authentic and transparent conversation, respectful that everyone's voice matters, regardless of position on any one of the issues that we will discuss.
Thank you, President Joyce. As we undertake some of the business of our meeting, want to just give a quick preview of the way that we discharge this business through proposals before moving into a motion. And so before an idea is locked into Bourneau's rules of order and parliamentary procedure, there's a more informal process as a proposal of discussion that has 3 steps. It's on page 35 of your delegate handbook if you want to see that. But very generally, we want to be clear about what is being asked of the court. So questions for clarity, and is the wording then sufficient to do that? And are we ready to move to a motion? At any point, if we want to check on what your will, what your thoughts are, there would be a simultaneous show of either warm or cool cards. So if you're warm to an idea or a change that is expressed, then you would use the orange card, just hold it up. If you're cool to that idea, you hold up the blue. And you don't wait for your turn, you just throw it all up, and from the front we can see what the mood of the room is and follow up with further questions or conversation around suggestions that may be made. So if that is clear to you, is that clear to you, warm or cool?
Cool.
So I did see a couple cool cards, and so we would then ask the people with the cool cards if there's anything that they want to say or ask further about, and further refine and clarify what is happening. So if that is clear, and then from there we then have a mover and a seconder, and then discussion on the motion it becomes. And the majority of our proposals for our court's consideration will be handled in this fashion because it is asking action to take place within our bounds, within our authority. any proposals that are asking General Council or the National Church to consider follows under a different process, and I'll give a preview at that time when that happens. But for now, we've got our cards, we're in proposals, and we're gonna seek clarity and be clear on the matter of proposal number 2 in your delegate handbook, that London Conference become an affirming ministry, and approve the affirming ministry vision statement and plan of action as presented on pages 40 to 43 of the delegate handbook 2018. So just for clarity, I want to emphasize or state that if London Conference were to become an affirming ministry, that does not automatically make its presbyteries or its congregations or its members affirming. We only have authority to look at, make our own decisions that affect us. Presbyteries have the authority and power to make decisions that affect them and speak to their position, as do congregations and pastoral charges, as do you. So the idea of London Conference becoming an affirming ministry is that London Conference in its life, with its staff, in its committee work, with its divisions, in its events, would commit to the principles of becoming affirming as listed in the proposal. We had the proposed word of the proposal has been looked at by Affirm United, and so there's so they're satisfied and happy with the statements as they are, with the one caution or the one recommendation under appendix number 1, page 43, I believe. The 7th point speaks about equality, and I just want to, we were asked to remind the court that equity instead of equality may be a better term for what we are after. That we don't want to treat everyone equally, but we want to treat everyone so that they can experience life in London Conference equally, have equal access. So that may mean different treatment for different people so that that can be realized. So that difference being between equity and equality. That being said, that is contained within the appendix of the proposal. It would not change the intent of the motion, and the appendix certainly was generated by the input and conversation and feedback that table groups from previous conference annual meetings generated. So that is not a change of substance, but an opportunity for teaching.
Is there any clarification that is required? I'm just going to move this sign. I support the sign. I just need to see it. I'm not seeing anyone. Could we get the lights down just a little bit? I'm sorry, couldn't see you there.
Oh.
Microphone number 2.
I'm 5'9". How could you not
You're
see
5'9",
me?
yeah.
And I don't weigh 100 pounds. Just a couple of points. I'm sorry. I'm Marilyn Townsend Smith, and I'm from Lambton Presbytery. And my partner is transgender.
Is this a point about clarification?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Because I have a problem with the word safe. I was speaking with Jeremy yesterday and raised that point because in order to be affirming, you only need a 70% vote. That means 30% of the people are against it. If one person is against it, it's not a safe space. And he recognized that as well and said that they tend to use the word positive instead of safe. The other point that I want to make about this is about the word inclusive. to be completely, well, my son-in-law works at Western as a COO, and they are dealing with these same issues, and we had a big conversation about this. And his point is that to be truly inclusive, you also have to be respectful of those who are not for gender equality or who are really against same-sex issues and all that stuff. So we're not being inclusive if we're excluding a group of people. That's all I wanted to say about this.
Thank you.
Nancy Andrews, Lambton Presbytery. I guess my comment kind of relates to that in a way. And it just, I think when you say that we are going to respect and value all diverse life challenges, and I think you have to frame it in the context of that we will respect, that we value dignity, fairness, caring, although you mention it, for all people. You gotta be kind of, like there may be some lifestyles that we can't really support or be positive about because they are hurtful. So, you know, I think you have to wrap it in the context of that we respect all, you know, all lifestyles that are positive and follow these values that we share.
Thank you. I just want to remind the court we want to get comments around clarification. It feels like we're moving into debate a little bit. Any other statements around questions for clarification?
Don Graham, Elgin Presbytery. Clarification, what is the ministry voting requirement for voting on this that Affirm United states on their website that there should be a minimum 75% agreement in the vote, and that's a minimum. Has the clarification, we haven't talked about a percentage, and if there is a percentage, how do we determine that? Will we need to do a ballot?
We are voting by ballot.
President Joyce, I can also answer the 75% threshold that's listed in the Affirm United material is for a vote on allowing same-sex marriages to take place within that ministry. Because London Conference doesn't, so that's the 70 plus percentage threshold. But the rest of the documentation just says that the approval of the vision statement and the plan of action, as we are doing, just requires approval of the governing body, which by our interpretation still remains at 50% plus one. Obviously, a larger mandate would be preferred, but that is the threshold.
Microphone number 2.
Nancy Wadden, Middlesex. Question for clarification. In the appendix 1.4, I understand diversity in ministry personnel, staff, volunteers, but what does that look like in terms of audience? How do we live into that?
I think may I speak, President Joyce? I think it's a great question, Nancy, and it's one we have to monitor ourselves in. So many of you know my family's biracial. I immediately scan a room for how white the crowd is, because I've learned to do that because of who we are. The intention to create someone on our executive as a Minister of Diversity is somebody who will help us to continue to do that in a wide variety of ways.
I don't question the need for it, I just wonder how you do it. Is this about the process of making sure that when an event is advertised, there are markers there, symbols there, invitations there? To try and include more people, to open the door wider, to make people, help people understand the door is open wider? I'm wondering how we move in that direction.
My answer would be, I don't know that we have, those are good suggestions, and we're gonna have to help each other learn to do it. What this helps identify is we believe we need to learn. Which is not really an answer, but
Microphone number 1.
Brad Morrison, Lambton Presbytery. Kenji, I don't have access to the internet right now, but my understanding of the 70 or 75% threshold isn't specifically for just affirming marriage policy, but it's for the congregational vote to accept vision statement to become an affirming congregation. So I'm wondering if for clarification we could take a look at that text to make sure that we're fulfilling affirm.
I'm doing that now. I looked at it right before coming up here, so I'm fairly confident in my short-term memory, but I will check.
which page is it on?
I just search for quotes. I have clarification just.
Microphone number 2.
Dave Exley, Middlesex Presbytery, just to confirm what Brad was indicating there. With internet access, it is a recommendation of 75%, not just related to marriage policy, but to the vote.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Don Graham, Elgin Presbytery. I agree that it is the 75% because it is marriage policy, received approval of your vision statement and plan of action from your affirming ministry program coordinator. You must seek approval of your ministry to become an affirming ministry through a vote in which we strongly advise a minimum of 75%. Remember, the goal is that everybody intentionally be inclusive, so we encourage all who are actively involved in your ministry to participate in a vote. For example, the congregation, both official members and adherents. This is right off the website.
Thank you.
So because it's a conference vote, clarification, do we have staff who are licensed to marry in the conference, who are paid by the conference?
Yes.
No one is licensed to marry outside of the authority of a pastoral charge, and all ministry personnel are bound by the marriage license of the pastoral charge they serve, or the one where they have requested the permission of the governing body to perform a wedding. So there is no conference marriage personnel. There is no conference policy that would apply to conference staff, because conference staff could only exercise their marriage license with the approval of an official board through a congregation, and that congregation's marriage policy would apply.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And I will confirm that I will amend my previous statement about 75% approval. My short-term memory was okay. It was just my eyesight is, it's hard to read the thing on this. But 75%, so I thank the court for clarifying that for me.
Microphone number 2.
Michelle Down from Middlesex Presbytery. Affirm United originally laid out the process for congregational ministries becoming affirming, and so they have amended that for conferences or other courts to remove that component to have a marriage license, or sorry, excuse me, a marriage policy as part of the affirming process, so that we have been released from that obligation from affirming.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Yes, Dorcas Tisdale from
I'm sorry?
Elgin Presbytery. Just a couple quick questions.
I can't hear you. Could you speak?
Oh. Sorry? Okay. Dorcas Tisdale from St. Paul's United Church, Elgin Presbytery. Just a couple quick questions. Will there
Is this
be,
for clarification?
Yes. Will
Yes.
there be open mic? And our time frame to me is 10 o'clock to 10:30. For such an important issue, I feel that's a very small time frame to go through what we're intending to do here. Is that going to be possible? And can it be extended?
Yes, there will be opportunity for discussion, like when it moves to a motion. We, at this point, are clarifying what exactly we are talking about.
Are you?
Time frame?
Time frame?
Yeah, like say this time frame on the agenda.
That will be up to the Business and Agenda Committee to carve that out.
Yes. Microphone number 1.
Gary Stover, Middlesex Presbytery. Clarification on page 41. Encourage that a minister of diversity to be included at the executive table of London Conference and succeeding regions 6, 7, and 8 governance. That minister of diversity, just for clarification, because you don't include terms of reference here for that position at the table, would that be paid accountable or not paid accountable? Minister of Diversity, because in page 39 at the beginning, the financial implication for London Conference is it's within budget.
The Minister of Diversity is not a staff position. It's not paid accountable. I think it's the name of the office as populated by capable and qualified volunteers, as many of us are on these boards.
Can we move to a motion?
Can we move to motion? Could I just ask Marilyn, are you wishing a change of wording around the comments that you made? And if so, where would you want to see that? Microphone number 2.
Thank you. I really would love to see the word safe changed to positive. Wherever safe appears, change that word to positive, because that sits much more comfortably. It indicates that we're growing and we're still working towards that, whereas just stating safe does not, that's just not appropriate in my mind. So, yeah, anywhere it says safe, just change that word to positive. I think that's acceptable. And that's the only thing. I don't think we can do anything about this inclusivity. There's not another word that would cover what our intent is. So we'll embrace that term.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Brad Morrison, Lambton Presbytery. So now that we've established that it's a 75% and that it's strongly recommended isn't a requirement, so it may be helpful for us as a court to first establish what our threshold will be and make that clear so that no confusion afterwards.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Robin Sherman, Essex Presbytery. If we're going to clarify the word safety, our table was also questioning unconditional. Does it need to be there? And is there another word? Our discussion yesterday was that there are always some conditions around love. As an example that was brought up at our table, in marriage vows, there are some conditions around that. We make vows because we're setting up the conditions of what we're going to do and how we're going to be within that. Those conditions go out the window if somebody abuses the child or something like that. We can't guarantee that the love will be unconditional. So our suggestion was that we either find another word to go there. The suggestion that was made was possibly expansive love or just love. And does that belong in clarification discussion? we
So,
weren't sure.
Are you relating to that as part of the vision statement that's being offered?
Yeah, well, we're wondering, the same as safety,
right?
Where it says safety, sanctuary, unconditional love. So yes, I suppose wherever it would appear, as the other person was saying, wherever it would appear that it either simply be love or that another word.
You offering another word?
Well, the word that we were offering was expansive.
Expansive?
Expansive, yes. Like, it's sort of how we moved from at the national level of the church when I served on Gender Justice Advisory and we looked at inclusive language. We moved from calling it inclusive to expansive because it's always changing and growing. And so as our language changes and grows, perhaps our love could change and grow as well. So in that idea of expansive, it might look at it as that we continue to grow in love and with love.
President Joyce, I would like to suggest that you test with the court that they would like to change the word unconditional to expansive with warm, cool cards, and that will give us some advice.
Okay.
If I could just respond, very quickly, the Affirm Task Group saw the vision statement as an aspirational statement, a statement, the vision to which we want to have happen. So it is pie in the sky. It is idealized. It is the promised land as the vision. So that was some of the meaning behind safety, sanctuary, and unconditional love, recognizing that we do have a long way to go to get to that place.
Could we get a show with your warm and cool cards then around changing the word unconditional to expansive?
So President Joyce, because the court is very mixed on that, my suggestion would be we come back to that. Because we are at a time where we are close to our order of the day, but we did not check with the warm and cool cards about changing the word safe. And I wonder if we want to do that. And I'm just flagging that I realize this sounds ridiculous, but in terms of the wording of the document as I look through it, safe is an adjective, but we've also used the word safety. So I think we would need some clarity about if both are intended to be changed.
Could we get indication then of the court's desire to change the word safety to positive?
Would it be positivity?
Positivity. Safety to positivity. The court seems cool to, or warm, I'm sorry, warm, yeah. Okay, the court seems very warm, but there are some cool. So for those folks who are registering a cool reaction to that, can you share with us whether you can live with the change or whether you're offering clarity around something different? Microphone number one. Microphone number one, please.
Annalie Kerr from Kent Presbytery. I would speak in favor of keeping safe, sanctuary, and what's the third one?
Unconditional.
Yes, because these are the goals, as Kenji has pointed out. This is our vision, this is our aspiration. And so often when we have baptisms or weddings or whatever, we might add by the grace of God. We know very well that we aspire to these things, but we can't necessarily prove that we can carry it out. So I would speak in favor of keeping as it has been presented.
Microphone number two. I'm sorry. Microphone number two.
Elizabeth Dunn, Middlesex Presbytery. I would speak in favor of turning safe space into positive space because I believe that I agree with what was said, that if we're not a completely safe space, we should not advertise ourselves as such, even if it is the goal. But I would also think that we should leave safety as safety and not positivity. So changing just safe space to positive space.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Dave Hewitson, Kent Presbytery. One of the things I've noticed over the past number of years coming to London Conference, when we leave the conference, we put our faith and our trust into various committees who work hard on our behalf until the ensuing conference. And when we get to conference, we seem to spend a great deal of time wordsmithing. And what we're doing now is starting to wrangle over every word in the statement. And if this is an idealized picture of what we're looking for, I think it's something we should trust in the people who've worked on it.
I would appreciate for all of business in the court that we do not applaud or boo or make any other kind of responses as people speak. Thank you. We are at the order of the day. And so
we have one last person.
Two more.
Oh, are there 2 more? Then we are at an order.
We are, this is the parliamentarian we're cutting off. Let me just deliberate on that for a moment.
We are at an order of the day, and what we're doing next, President Joyce, is important. This is helpful conversation. We'll come back to it, friends. We're not finished with it. We'll come back to it this afternoon. Just before we move to break, President Joyce, I would like to draw to the court's attention. We know that there were some problems with Wi-Fi access yesterday, and we're grateful to the tech team who've been working hard on that and trying to stabilize it today. As we move towards the closing of nominations this afternoon, we continue to have spots available for people to be nominated to the position of Commissioner, Ministry Personnel and Lay. So please, if you are considering that, please review the position description in the delegate handbook and submit your nomination as quickly as possible. Once your nomination is in hand, there is a fair amount of back-end work to get the bios ready. The earlier we have it, the better we can get it out to you. Thank you.
We just got a couple of announcements here before we move into break.
I actually have several, but there
Several
we go.
announcements.
So a follow-up to what Cheryl Ann just said, if you want to do a nomination and you can't get online, go to the business office. They can help you with that. And as soon as you get it, we submit it. We're going to get it. Kathy's waiting for signatures. As soon as you can get over there and sign them when she's got them available, that would be appreciated. They have to be done by like 3:15 so we can get everything ready. The diaconal community and friends and ministers are invited to gather for supper on tonight in the book room. There's a table going to be set up there for you. If you have anything you want put out on the tables, please run them by the business table first. The book room is open all weekend. What else do I have? Wait a minute. That's next on my list. The air conditioning. We know it's cold in here. We are all cold. It has been adjusted, but it will take some time to get the temperature back up, so please bear with us, and I won't tell you what Tanya said. Bus tickets are still available to travel to First St. Andrews. The cost is $5. See Pam Wilcox or the registration table. And if you wish to make a donation to Aluco by cash or check, please see Pam Wilcox. And there are boxes still in the back for food donations and canned goods. Just watch for the signs that are posted. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your break.
We'll strive to be back at 10:45 for the retiree Jubilant service.
Thank
We don't all hear everything, I guess.
Friends, if I could grab your attention for 2 seconds, just before we begin to honor our retirees. I gather there is some confusion around the General Council ballot. So, we have some preferred spots, which means if we have sufficient nominees, they will be slotted into those spots because we agreed last year that we would have 2 under 19, 2 19 to 30, 2 racialized deaf, and that we would have a lay and member of the order of ministry or designated lay minister from each presbytery. But that's not all our spots. So those are preferred spots. Those are spots we are really encouraging people to consider if they fit in those categories. But we need more commissioners than that. So if you're holding back because you don't fit the categories that are out there, I'm competing with the train. Please submit your application. We need more folks than that for our General Council commissioners. We always need a few extra. We have yet to go to a General Council where we haven't needed 1 or 2 alternates. So please, friends, look at that and think about it. If you have more questions, talk to Kathy.
Thank you very much, Carolyn, because at this point we actually don't have a
That's what it says on the
Can we get you to take your seats, please? We'll get you to take your seats so we can start the worship. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's just pray together. Gracious God, we gather in this place and we give you thanks for bringing us together. We give you thanks for those who have served faithfully in the ministry that you have called them to. And we give you thanks as now they move into a new stage of life. Pray your blessing upon them and upon what we have to share together this morning. For we ask it in the name of the risen Jesus. Amen. It is my great privilege and honor to be here today, and especially to have the opportunity to speak to those folks who are retired or retiring, and those folks who are jubilants. As someone who is 3 years away from retirement, I have been wondering what it is that I would have to say to you this morning. As I was thinking about that, I started to think about some of the friends I know, and I have a good friend who just turned 91, and she told me the other day that she's just finally figured out what it means to retire. And I kind of asked, what took you so long? She said, well, you know, I wasn't quite sure, but I finally figured it out, and I'm having so much fun. I would recommend it to everybody. And I thought, whoa, well over 20 years to figure out what it means to retire. Is that what's in store? Then I thought of another friend of mine who retired recently and committed that for the first year of retirement, he would do absolutely nothing. And that's what he did. And even though finances was tight, he hung in there. And he was having such a blast that he couldn't think about going into further retirement. Notice Gary's looking at me quite intently because he's thinking about retirement too. Now, I thought of another friend of mine, and she decided when she retired that not only would she not do anything, but that she would make sure that any opportunities that came to her, she would say no. So if you went to her and say, would you be willing to do this? She would say, is there a younger person who might be available to do that rather than me? And you had to prove to her that you couldn't find somebody who was younger to do the work. And she maintained that discipline because in her mind, it was important for her to nurture up a younger generation of leadership. I know for many of us, we have been part of a system that doesn't always compensate us in ways that allow us to actually retire. And sometimes what that means for us is that we continue in spaces that doesn't allow a younger generation to get the kind of experience they need to offer the kind of leadership that the church needs. And I understand that tension. I want this morning, though, to reflect with you on a text, and it's a strange text. It's from Paul's letter to the church in Philippi. In chapter 1, Paul says this, I thank my God every time I remember you, constantly praying with joy in every one of my prayers for all of you, because of your sharing in the gospel from the first day till now. I'm confident of this, that the one who began a good work among you will bring it to completion by the day of Jesus Christ. It is right for me to think this way about all of you because you hold me in your heart. For all of you share in God's grace with me, both in my imprisonment and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel. For God is my witness, how I long for all of you with the compassion of Christ Jesus. And this is my prayer, that your love may overflow more and more with knowledge and full insight to help you determine what is best, so that in the day of Christ you may be pure and blameless, having produced the harvest of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ for the glory and the praise of God. I want to suggest this morning that as you begin your journey in retirement, that you first of all see it as a spiritual discipline. That this new journey is a journey that calls you to a new chapter of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And that new journey requires you a spiritual discipline and the discipline of prayer. Now, I grew up in a tradition where I come from a fairly staunch evangelical background. And I grew up in a context where every day you took an hour for Bible study and prayer. And as my life has gotten crazier and crazier, I find that that's a hard thing to do. And those of us who are engaged in ministry know that it's an important thing to do, but often don't have the time to do it. And I want to suggest to you this morning that one of the gifts of retirement, hopefully, is a gift of time to nurture a new way of being disciplined in terms of your spiritual life. And I think that's important. And part of it is that now those of you who have journeyed through ministry for a long time, what does it mean for you to be holding up in prayer your colleagues who continue in ministry? And tonight, we will ordain, set apart a few folks who would continue in that tradition. What if each of you were to commit in this next year of retirement to pray daily for the candidates who will be ordained. So that our mission and ministry together as the Church of Jesus Christ, and the particular expression of being the United Church of Canada, is a community that's rooted in spiritual discipline, and a spiritual discipline that is nurtured and lived in the context of those of you who have run the race before us. To see your new chapter in life as an invitation for a new form of discipline. To pray for congregations you have served. Pray for congregations who continue their ministry. Now, I know it's not always easy. Most of us have experienced what I call the gifts of grace in our congregations. And there are the people, I was thinking about this recently, that in my life I've played golf 3 times. And I quit while I was ahead. And the reason I quit while I was ahead, I remember the second time I was out on the golf course, I would imagine those little balls as some of the gifts of grace in the congregations where I served. And I realized I wasn't a violent person and that I shouldn't participate in activities that brought out the violence in me. So I quit while I was ahead. But, you know, I'm sure you have stories of the gifts of grace that have been part of the communities of faith that you've served over the years. And you remember them fondly. And maybe most of your stories are your stories about those gifts of grace, rather than people who actually brought real joy and life and energy into your ministries. But what if this new chapter in your life is a chapter about a spiritual discipline, and a spiritual discipline of prayer? Second thing I want to challenge you with or encourage you with is this. One of the things that is missing in the life of our church today is mentors. It would be interesting to add up the collective years of ministry around these 2 tables and to imagine the kinds of stuff you have learned, the kind of stuff you have seen, the kind of experience that you have garnered, and to ask yourself, what is God calling me to do with all those experiences? I have a good friend, and I must confess I was so annoyed at him. It took me a long time to agree that the friendship could continue. And after 25 years of ministry, he said to me, if one of my kids ever came to me and said they wanted to be a minister, I would do everything in my power to dissuade them. I had to swallow hard when I heard that. Because part of me asked myself the question, how have you survived in 25 years of ministry if you didn't believe this was the best job in the world? It is. Despite the gifts of grace, it is the best job in the world. Where else can you find the opportunity to walk and accompany people through all the messiness of life, to bring hope, to bring encouragement, to help people understand truly that they are not alone? So what if, during this time, you take the opportunity to identify a younger minister and offer to mentor? Now, you know, in the United Church, we get around mentorship. Sorry. But what if we were to be the kind of community that God invites us to be, and to call somebody up and say, you don't know me from Adam, but I want to walk with you. And I'm committing praying for and with you, but I'm also committing to offer you a listening ear. I'm not going to tell you how to do your ministry, but I'm going to be an encourager for you. One of the lowest point in times in my ministry, as a congregational minister in the Baptist Church for about 25 years, came out as a gay man and was kicked out of my denomination. And within a month of having been kicked out of the denomination, I got a phone call from somebody I'd met once in my life. And he said to me, your friend so-and-so mentioned what had happened to you. And he said, I don't want you to be out there alone. I will walk with you. And for a year, every week, for a year, we met for coffee. I'm here today because of his gift to me and his willingness to be responsive to what God had to offer. For my brothers and sisters, what if, as you begin this new chapter of your life, you would commit yourself to offer your prayers, your wisdom, your ear, your care to other younger ministers in this denomination for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of the kingdom of God. And finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for faithful ministry in probably, for some of you and for all of us, the most difficult years in the life of the church and the life of the Canadian context. You have lived through decline. You have lived through the loss of generations attending church. You have lived through some significant changes in the life of the church and the society, but you have done it faithfully. Paul says, I thank my God for every remembrance of you. And I just want to say thank you. And I also want to say, because I think this is important for all of us, that we are in a society that is characterized by but. B-U-T, not the double T. We have lost the ability and the grace of simply saying, thank you. How often have you heard, thank you, but? So thank you. And what if all of us collectively this morning in this place agree together not only to say thank you, but daily to pray for those who have given their lifetime, their energy, their passion, who have been faithful to the call of God on their lives in the service of ministry, in some very difficult and thankless ways. That collectively we see this journey, and every year we celebrate those who retire and who've celebrated years of ordination. We do it in an act of prayer. I thank my God every time I remember you. That we commit ourselves to pray for those who have given leadership. just as we invite them to pray for those of us. And I have a sneaky suspicion that if we start to pray, I thank you, thank God for every remembrance of you, that even the gifts of grace will truly become gifts of grace. So this morning, we as a community celebrate you. We celebrate you by saying thanks. We encourage you in this new chapter of your life. Commit to mentor those who are still in the trenches. And we invite you to see this new chapter of your life as a new stage of spiritual discipline. May God bless you.
Michael Blair, thank you so very much for words which celebrate and uplift the folks who are here with me. And what do we call this? The risen place. Once again, I am Kate Crawford in ministry in Huron-Perth Presbytery, and this time I have a different hat on. I am here as the London Conference convener for the Retirees and Jubilants celebration. I am extremely honored and privileged to be able to do this. One by one, I will ask the retirees to come forward so that we as a court may honor them. I'm going to ask the tech team if they would confirm for me that they have the material on the slides. Wave something at me. They're waving, look at them. Because we all as a court have a role and a voice in this celebration. The retirees are going to be invited to come forward alphabetically. That seemed the simplest way. And so with joy, I invite Randy Covey to join me at the podium. I present to the court Reverend Randy Covey. Randy has served in 7 pastoral charges over 30 years, and we give our gratitude to God.
Thank you. I feel blessed to have been able to serve the church and bear witness to God's call. To the United Church, I say thank you for allowing me a place to love and be loved, to inspire and be inspired, to bless and be blessed.
Randy was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the Spirit free to explore and share God's love in new and adaptive ways?
Being open to the movement of the Spirit of God has been a goal throughout my time in ministry. Ministry can be at times stressful, taxing, and situation-bound. At the same time, it can be exciting, joyful, and spirit-enriching. And I'm grateful and thankful for all of it. In this new phase of my life, I continue to strive to follow the Spirit to that something new in life. For next year, an appointment sharing my gifts of love, nurture, and encouragement to a new church, focusing on their ministries of love, nurture, and encouragement.
In the book of Isaiah, God says, I am creating something new. There it is. Do you see it? We invite you to live fully into this new thing. There should be another slide there. Let's start that slide together. We invite you to live fully into this new thing, even as you heed the psalmist who says, be still and know that I am God. Randy, we honor, where have you gone? Over there. Can't see him. Randy, we honor your decision to retire from your ministry position with this pastoral charge and pray that you will continue your journey as a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. Randy, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set free. Randy, we ask that we might bless you one more time.
Will you pray with me? Holy God, we give you thanks for Randy, your servant. We pray in his new phase of ministry, you will guide him and uphold him as he stretches the Spirit amongst us and around us. Amen.
Randy, has the pastoral relationship in which you are now covenanted draws to a close and you enter a new stage, we give you this certificate as a sign that we remain together always in covenant as the whole people of God.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
I present to the court Barbara Dawson. Barb has served 3 pastoral charges over 12 years, and we give our gratitude to God. Barb has brought her husband, George Dawson, where's George? There he is, as her guest today.
I feel blessed to have been able to serve the church and bear witness to God's call. To the United Church of Canada, I say thank you, and for allowing me a place to love and be loved, to inspire and be inspired, to bless and be blessed.
Barb was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the Spirit free to explore and share God's love in new and adaptive ways?
One of the adventurous aspects of journeying is the not knowing of it, which is where I find myself now as I move into another phase of ministry. Typically, I like to know and make various efforts to find out and to fill in the gaps. But I found that it's often in the gaps that I am most open to the movement of the Spirit.
Barb, the empty spaces require you to trust, to embrace the not knowing on the way to knowing something new. Will this new move you from one type of leadership to another? You cannot know, For now be content to spend some time not knowing. Barb, we honor your decision to retire from your ministry position and pray that you will continue your journey as a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. Barb, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the spirit free. Barb, we ask that we might bless you one more time.
You pray with me. Holy God, we give you thanks for your servant and loyal disciple, Barb. May you be with her as she discerns the not knowing. Open those possibilities for her to share her gifts. Bring the Spirit to surround those that she meets and those of us who love her. Amen.
Barb, receive this certificate. As the covenant of your pastoral relationship draws to a close, accept this as a sign and a reminder that we remain forever together in the covenant of the whole people of God.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
I present to the court Reverend Janet Fredette. Jan has served 8 pastoral charges over 28 years, and we give our gratitude to God. Janet has brought her husband, Jerry Fredette, as her guest today.
I feel blessed to have been able to serve the church and bear witness to God's call. To the United Church of Canada, I say thank you for allowing me a place to love and be loved, to inspire and be inspired, to bless and be blessed.
Jan was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the Spirit free to explore and share God's love in a new and adaptive way?
As I journey to and through a new phase in my ministry, I am prayerfully considering how I might best set the Spirit free to migrate from prophetic leadership to adaptive leadership, and so I am listening prayerfully for guidance as I ponder how I might best serve God during my retirement years.
We trust that God has plans for your future to be filled with hope and goodwill. Remain open to God's invitation. For now we know that you are so very thankful for this gift of time and restful recuperation from the challenges and responsibilities of active ministry. And we honor your decision to retire from your ministry position and pray that you will continue your journey as a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. Jan, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the Spirit free. We ask that we might be able to bless you one more time.
Will you pray with me? Holy God, we give you grateful thanks for your servant, Jan, for the love that she has generously shared, for the spirit that she has encompassed all of us with. And as she journeys into this new phase of ministry, please accompany her and have her know our love and best wishes, encouragement and desire for her spirit to flourish remains forever. Amen.
Amen.
Janet, as the covenant of your pastoral relationship comes to a close, we offer you this certificate as a reminder that we are forever together in covenant as the whole people of God.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
I present to the court Betty Jean Page. Betty has served 4 pastoral charges over 15 years. Today she is accompanied by her sister, Deanna Reed. Betty Jean was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the spirit free to explore and share God's love in new and adaptive ways? Betty responds by saying that she is staying at Wilkesport as the minister in that place, that she is continuing in this process which is already begun, and enjoying and celebrating the arrival in that pastoral charge of young families and new members as she watches the church grow. She says God has blessed her richly within and outside of the pastoral charge which she has served. She feels so blessed and wishes all of us continued blessing from God. Jean.
Thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you, so that you might continue to
bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the spirit free. Betty Jean, we ask that you would allow us to bless you one more time.
Will you pray with me? Holy God, we give you thanks for the ministry and witness of your faithful servant, Betty Jean. And as she continues to spread the Spirit far and wide in this new phase of her life, we ask, O God, that you accompany her and allow her to set that Spirit free beyond all of our knowing into new, wonderful, majestic, and unknowing ways.
Amen.
This certificate, that no matter what covenants you enter in ministry, you remain forever together with us in the covenant we share as the whole people of God.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
I present to the court Paul Rohde. Paul has served 5 pastoral charges over 22 years, and we give our gratitude to God. Paul has brought his wife, Ginny Rohde, as his guest today.
I feel blessed to have been able to serve the church and bear witness to God's call. To the United Church of Canada, I say thank you for allowing me a place to love and to be loved, to inspire and be inspired, to bless and be blessed.
Paul was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the Spirit free to explore and share God's love in new and adaptive ways?
No matter where I have served in ministry, it has always been about life in the Spirit. There have been times in my life when doors seem to be closing, but along comes the Spirit to open a new window or a new door. Transforming to retirement for me will just be another form of ministry, because I think that we are always blooming wherever we are placed, as the Spirit walks with us on our journey.
Paul, continue to help others find their individual gifts and to help them use those gifts to further God's vision, God's love, and God's compassion for the world. No matter where we are planted, there are people with varied gifts, varied life experiences, searching for an extended family where they can find support, acceptance, love, and belonging. Paul, we honor your decision to retire from your ministry position and pray that you will continue your journey as a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. Paul, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the Spirit free. Paul, we ask that we might bless you one more time.
Pray with me. Holy God, we give you thanks for your humble servant, Paul, for his gifts of ministry, for all of the service he has given so willingly. And we ask, O God, that you accompany him as he shares his gifts in a new way, transitioning to adaptive leadership, being able to empower others to set that Spirit free farther afield that we might imagine. In your name we pray. Amen.
Paul, receive this certificate as a sign that while your pastoral relationship covenant draws to a close, your covenant with us together as the whole people of God continues forever.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
I present to the court Reverend Colin Swan. Colin has served 6 pastoral charges over 36 years, and we give our gratitude to God. Colin has brought his wife, Jane Swan, to be his guest today.
I feel blessed
to have been able to have served the church and to bear witness to God's call. And to the United Church of Canada, I say thank you. Thank you for allowing me a place to love, be loved, to inspire, to be inspired, to bless, and to be blessed.
Colin was asked by President Joyce, as you journey to and through a new phase in your ministry, how might you set the Spirit free to explore and share God's love in new and adaptive ways?
And I've been scripted. You sure these are my words?
They're your words, I promise.
Prophetic ministry is more like Peter proclaiming the Christ, denying to save his own skin, wanting to go back to what was familiar, hiding in a locked room. And finally, at Pentecost, standing in the public square and declaring boldly the faith that was now his. That is also adaptive ministry.
Jesus said, "Follow me. You know that life is a calling. It will not end with retirement. It will just be in different places." Colin, we honor your decision to retire and pray that you will continue your your journey as a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. Colin, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the Spirit free. Colin, we ask that we might be able to bless you one more time.
Will you pray with me? Holy God, we give you thanks for your humble servant, Colin, for all of the prophetic ministry he has offered. We ask, O God, that you not let him be in a locked room, that you not let him hide his gifts as he moves forward into a new phase of adaptive ministry. We thank you that you will allow the Spirit to move freely around him and through him to embrace all of us in his new journey in life. Amen.
Amen.
Colin, receive this certificate that as the covenant of your pastoral relationship draws to a close, let it be a reminder that you remain forever in covenant together with us as the hope of God.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
This morning, we also celebrate the retirement of the Reverend David Mitchell, who could not be with us here today, but understands that this court will be lifting up his ministry, his service to Jesus Christ and to the body of Christ in this service this morning. He is grateful for that, and understands that the court's prayers and blessings fall upon him. In a moment, the Jubilans will be invited to the stage, and Cheryl Ann Stadelbauer-Sampa will be celebrating their ministry among us. Before we leave the stage, I would like you in the court to know that the retirees and their guests will remain with us for lunch. They are being served at their table. Yeah, that's what you get when you retire. They are here to receive your greetings and your blessings, so please, as you are able, come and greet them and thank them for their gift of service with us and through us. We listened among our retiring colleagues of many decades of service. And today we honor in particular some of our ministers who have celebrated the 50th anniversary or longer. The church recognizes those who have celebrated 50 years since becoming a minister as a jubilant. Excuse me. And then honors them every 5 years after that. This year, 2 of our jubilants are able to be with us, and I would like to invite Gord and Ray to come to the stage now, please. I am sure that he needs no introduction, but for anyone who is new to the court, this is the Reverend Gord Duncan. Gord was born in the eastern townships of the province of Quebec. When he entered ministry, he moved to Saskatchewan. And when he was ready to leave Saskatchewan, he and his life partner, who's been such a support in ministry and a keen member of the camps wherever they have served, his wife Dot, traveled to Ontario. The 2 of them settled at Blenheim and served Blenheim United Church in Kent Presbytery before Gord moved to Huron-Perth Presbytery to serve Centennial United Church in Stratford. From there, he relocated to Lucan and served Lucan United Church. When he officially retired, he took on the role of Minister of Visitation at Calvary United Church in London in Middlesex Presbytery. Gord's acceptance of that role was no surprise to anyone who knows him, because Gord has the amazing gift of presence. His ability to bring care and compassion has been the hallmark of his pastoral relationships and has helped him form bonds that have lasted long past his time as people's minister.
The other way in which Gord has shared his ministry of presence is in terms of his availability and dedication to the work of presbytery. Gord has been unfailingly involved. He's been prepared to take on roles that were vacant because leadership was needed, and as a result, to be the face from the presbytery when congregations were upset and ministers distressed. And his calm and caring presence has made such a difference. My favorite story about Gord is that he and I co-chaired a committee, Pastoral Relations, and we had the good cop, bad cop routine down perfect. You guess. Gord, for your 55 years of devoted and faithful service, we thank you, and I invite the court to bless Gord as the screen comes up.
Lord, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you, so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the Spirit free.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Ray, could I invite you to come forward, please? Reverend Ray Hagerman entered ministry in the Maritimes, which was his home, and also home of his life partner who's assisted him throughout his ministry, his wife Eloise. Ray and Eloise served a variety of locations in the Maritimes before they took on the great adventure of which every United Church minister I know dreams. They accepted a call to Wesley Methodist Church in Bermuda. When it seemed to them the right time to return to Canada, we were privileged that Ray brought his gifts to St. Mary's United Church in Huron Perth Presbytery. And Ray and Eloise have continued to live in St. Mary's. One of the gifts that Ray brings to ministry is that he has the soul of a poet. And that is evident in two key ways. Firstly, Ray has a passion for music, and, well, if you know the Hagerman family, then you know that music is something they have all blessed the church by sharing. But the other gift that others may not know as well is that Ray is one of the most eloquent people at finding the metaphor that unlocks the truth and inviting you to see the world anew. So Ray, for your 55 years of ministry, we give you thanks. And I invite the congregation to join me in the words on the screen.
Ray, we thank you for your service and ask God to continue to bless you and keep you, so that you might continue to bloom where you are planted, to encourage, empower, and set the Spirit free.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Let us show our gratitude. We also today remember 3 jubilants who are not with us. And I invite you to pause for a moment and think of your experience with them. Reverend Gordon Geiger, Reverend Ralph Ingleby, and Reverend Edward Sam.
Thanks, Mark, for that musical introduction. That was awesome. A couple of announcements. I was told the announcements I did this morning were a bouquet, and now I just have a couple of roses to share. First off, during lunch, for those of you that don't have your T-shirts that everybody in the court is supposed to be wearing, if you don't have it with you, that's fine. But if you haven't picked it up yet, please go to the registration and get it. We're asking you all to wear your T-shirts. We're going to meet outside between 12:30 and 12:45, and we're going to gather as a bouquet and have a conference-wide picture taken. And the second announcement is a reminder that if you have ordered gluten and gluten-free or vegetarian meals, they will be over in the buffet on that side, as will the regular meals. And if you haven't ordered them, please don't take them. We don't want anyone to be hungry or sad.
Never mind. She said never mind. I'm Robin Sherman from Essex Presbytery. I have the honor of saying grace here today for the court for this particular meal that we're about to partake in. And it occurred to me that one of the things that is kind of missing within our court is our youth. And, you know, I mean, they're at our tables and things, but our children at conference, and we don't have that interaction. Now, there are a few babies here. The babies are around the room. I saw a couple of them. There's at least 2, I think, in the court. And so it occurs to me, there's one over there. I see one now. There's been a baby sighting. So it occurs to me that we have the youngest members and we have our retirees, a couple of whom I know are youngsters at heart. I can't speak for all of them. However, and so in that avenue of bringing that spirit to our court, the young at heart, those of us who refuse to age into a thing called old, I'm going to take you back. And if the team could help me out here, Johnny Appleseed. Do we know Johnny Appleseed? So come on, folks, let's do it. Stand if you want to, if you can. Oh. Enjoy your meal.
Way to go, man. Way to go.
that